I mean, just could have pummeled Craig's head into the canvas. It was
Yeah.
that hard, but it was vicious. And that's the kind of aggression you want to see from a guy, is that when he gets you hurt, he's trying to take you out. Bukowskis, man, it just shows that he's confident. He's been working on his game. He was not afraid to go to the ground with Paul Craig, and he's firing on all cylinders, man.
Among the three names that he called out, Zhang Mingyang, who just lost to Johnny Walker, and Johnny Walker. I don't know if you have an appetite for Bukowskis against either of those two guys. He did also mention the name Alonzo Metafield. I'm not sure if Metafield is ranked. Must be, I guess, if Bukowskis is calling his name. But what do you think? I mean, I think the Johnny Walker fight, makes some sense. It's crazy to think about Modestas Bukowskis elevating himself into like a light heavyweight main event, right? I'm going to try not to cry, but you do get sort of attached to these guys, and his father is there every step of the way. Gintas Bukowskis, this was a guy who was in the United States, right? Chasing basketball dreams at one point in time when he trained with John Jones. All right, we're going to table the UFC stuff just for a minute here. It looks like we do have the International Boxing Hall of Famer, at least on the phoner, and if we get video, we'll go to that. But now with us, one of the three men in the booth this weekend for Canelo v. Crawford, live on Netflix. 2004 Olympic gold medalist, former super middleweight and light heavyweight world champion, 2021 International Boxing Hall of Fame inductee, and arguably the greatest super middleweight of all time, Andre Ward is with us. My man, it's great to see you. Good morning. How we doing?
Fellas, thank you for having me. Happy to be on.
I know your time is precious, so we appreciate a few minutes of it, especially during this big fight week. I know you got a lot of irons in the fire as a businessman, as a host, but I'd imagine as a commentator, you were pretty excited when they called your number for a live event of this magnitude.
Yeah, it's always a blessing. Been in the game a long time. I've feel like I paid my dues. I think a lot of people feel like I started commentating, post career, but I've really been at it for a very long time. And similar to yourself, man, I take it serious. I really dig deep and on the research and just try to get my mind right. And I approach it like a fight. I want to make sure that I've dotted every I and crossed every T, and I give fans at home, give the company I'm working with and working for everything that they're looking for, and I expect to do the same thing here for this big fight.
What's your favorite part about it, Andre? Because you were such a cerebral fighter. I feel like it's an awesome opportunity for you to kind of school people on boxing and kind of what the mentality and preparation is for fighters.
The cool thing about commentating for me is, I got the best seat in the house, but I'm not taking no punches. I'm right there, but I'm not quite in the ring. And that continues to fuel me. I think that's helped me in retirement, to be that close, but not so close where I'm actually competing. But it is similar to preparing for a fight. There's a preparation stage. There's a lot of pressure. And when that light turns on, that red light turns on and you're live, you have to execute. And it's very similar to my sport. So I look at it that way. I look at life, in that way, just being a former athlete. Everything is kind of through that boxing lens, and commentating is very similar to me.
Andre, I love that I have this opportunity to ask you this question because, you have this pristine record. You're a gold medalist in the Olympics for boxing. And, people can look at it and be like, this guy had it easy. He never really had to deal with any adversity. I'm curious was there a point when you were coming up as a boxer where you're like, I don't know if this is for me? And then I guess my second question would be, what was the fight or what was the experience for you? Maybe it was a training session where you said, I could be a world champion at this.
I think early on I had questions. My dad started me out in the sport. Frank Ward, he was a heavyweight in high school. They actually had boxing, in high school. He grew up in San Bruno, California, and he was telling me about, sort of his rivals and just the boxing part of it. And I was a baseball player at that time, and I got into it because my dad did it. And it just, the first 6 months was just rough. Nonito Donaire, who's a Hall of Fame, great world champion. I came up in the gym with him and his brother Glenn Donaire. A lot of people don't know about his brother, but his brother, we were the same size, but he was much older than me, hit very hard. And I was like the first guy I had to really overcome for my dad to say, okay, he can do this. And it was just rough, man. And my dad would look at Verge and say, I don't know if he has it. Verge said, give him some time. And I started to overcome, Glenn, and I started to, break even, and then I started to kind of dominate at one point in time, and that's when I knew that I belong here. And then I had my first national title win 6 months after that, and that was kind of like it for me, where I said, okay, I can do this. And it just kind of grew from there, man. And then, in terms of like, even the pro game, like you gotta answer the call, but then you gotta answer it again, and you never can really rest until you retire. But the Super Six was that moment for me where it was confirmed again that I belong at this level. There's a lot of naysayers, there's supporters, and you just learn to cut through that and get the job done. But once you actually like win that first world title, get that monkey off your back, you prove to yourself that, man, I belong here at this level, and I'm thankful I lasted as long as I did.
Andre Ward with us live on the Anik and Florian podcast. Strongly urge you to check out the documentary. We actually, Kenny and I know the director, Rachel Newbeck. It was fantastic. I watched it on my last flight. S.O.G, the Book of War documentary. Really just great inside look at your dad and everything that sort of encompassed your boxing journey. I am, time permitting, going to ask you about a comeback. I know you get asked that every day, but I saw this clip with you and Bud today, and he says you still got it 8 years after your last fight. But in terms of this fight this weekend, right, you didn't have really any bouts of inactivity in your boxing career. You had one injury, I guess, that was pretty significant after the Chad Dawson fight. But one thing you can't speak to is some of Bud Crawford's bouts of inactivity when healthy. You were always fighting and seemingly in training camp. So that particular angle, I'm curious if you think that is an advantage for Canelo, going to Saudi Arabia, fighting at 6 a.m. and being in this more active competition cycle than the underdog Bud Crawford.
I think Terence has been active, with the exception of this last year. So I think he's been pretty consistent. The inactivity can go both ways. I've had some injuries throughout my career. I have, there was a moment where I was fighting a lawsuit and trying to get my business stuff together when I was active. And, a lot of people, the low hanging fruit is you lost 2 years. And I look at it like I gained 2 years. Like, I'm not taking any serious punishment, but I'm also not abusing my body. I don't drink, I don't smoke, and I'm in the gym, and I'm staying consistent on my craft, and I'm trying to find a way to get back. That matters. So you're resting, but then you're also working on your craft. I'm not getting 30 pounds overweight. I'm not living the party life and then saying, oh, here's a fight now after 2 years. Let me try to get myself together. That's a huge difference. So I think where Terence is in his career right now, he's got miles on the odometer. I don't think that he's, like an old fighter, so to speak, but he'll be 38, I think, shortly after this fight.
Right.
For
Kenny, you can chime in here. I think we lost the last half of that answer. Maybe you can unmute your mic, Andre, if it got muted. Ken Flo, you want to get one more in here before we let this man go?
Yes. I'm not sure if he can hear. Can you hear? Can you hear us, Andre? Okay. Maybe we have to get you back in. We can't hear you for some reason.
All right, we can try to get him back in, Cody, if you want to, in the back.
No.
But if not.
Okay.
All right. So
he might get back to us.
It's there's so many different angles, right? The angle of the fight that's going to be most talked about is going to be the weight, right? And I think you're going to have people that maybe lean a lot into the images of Terence Bud Crawford looking completely yoked right now as he moves up to 168. You got me, champ? Yeah, still on mute, Code, man. Still not hearing him. Technology.
Shoot.
Well, we thank him nonetheless. So I'm really excited to work with this man. And when it was brought to my attention that he was going to be the third man in the broadcast booth, people were like, dude, you're going to love working with him because he leaves the league in preparation. You can already tell.